can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that way you don't miss out on any of my videos. Also, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out in the algorithm, so hook a brother up. That said, we're going to be talking about Black Lightning #1, and this one is, man, this is a return to form, and also, not to mention, a long time no see here. Black Lightning, I feel like, has been on the back of a milk carton for, man, it feels like some few years. There was the Outsider series that came out, I believe, somewhere around like 2020, 2021, something around there. And that was really like the most Black Lightning I think we had seen in quite some time, other than the television series, which was not long for this earth around the time of that series coming out. And here it's like, okay, finally, Black Lightning, a character who should be a premier DC comic superhero, but for whatever reason is often, it's almost like they forget that he exists. Now, I will say probably a little bit of the reasoning behind that is because Black Lightning is one of those characters who is famous for not wanting to be a part of the Justice League. It actually kind of makes sense that he doesn't want to be a part of that, but at the same time, also seems kind of weird considering he's technically a part of it now, but also he's been a part of the Outsiders, which is also kind of a weird thing. You have Black Lightning not doing teams, but suddenly doing teams, but only these specific teams, and honestly, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't really try to think too hard about it. But Black Lightning is back, and he is not only, back himself, but his daughters, both Anissa and Jennifer, Thunder and Lightning respectively, are also along for the ride. And this is kind of what makes things that much more interesting. Now, to give you a little bit of recap of why Black Lightning is around right now, why he's being brought to the forefront, is because of the events of Absolute Power. In that event, Amanda Waller, both using the Batman villain failsafe as well as some Amazos with upgraded tech, she effectively stole all the powers, almost all the powers at least, of the DC Comics universe heroes. That said, as one would probably imagine, the good guys fought back. They were able to get their powers back and defeat Amanda Waller. That was basically the long and short of it. But in the midst of all that, something unusual happened. While the heroes who lost their powers got them back, not everyone did. And some people even got the wrong powers back. Now, that's kind of what sets all this up. We see in a flashback to Absolute Power that Jefferson and his daughters, they are trying to stop the Amazo attack. And it's at this moment that we see both Black Lightning as well as Anissa and Jennifer lose their powers. Now, this isn't a surprise. The Amazos were able to get everybody, pretty much anyone with a power set. I think at one point towards the near end of the series, it was stated that at least 80% of the heroes in the DC Comics universe were depowered. And the ones who did not have any powers at all, most of them were detained. So it's not a surprise that Black Lightning and his kids got. I mean, yeah, even pimps fuck up. In the midst of all this, we're witnessing a Black Lightning who is dealing with some PTSD, some very clear PTSD from this moment. And as a father, speaking as a father, especially to a young girl, it is very telling in this that the level of storytelling that was put towards these moments where we see Jefferson reminiscing about those moments, thinking back to what happened and how he loses himself in thought about what could have happened, how things could have gone differently, and what would have happened if the worst possible outcome could have occurred. Seeing himself as a failure in the eyes of his children, even though technically his children don't see him that way, but he sees himself that way. He was not able to protect his children. And it's also a very touchy subject too, because Jefferson as Black Lightning has always been protective of his daughters, even before they got superpowers, and I think even more so when they gained powers. He wanted to make sure that they had the best training, that they were given every opportunity to excel and become the heroes that even he doesn't think that he is sometimes. And yeah, to witness Jefferson wrestle with that. Like it was something that actually touched me. It was something that actually touched me. I thought that this was done. I think Brandon did a very fantastic job here. No doubt at all in that regard. And it's also kind of in all this where the real meat of the story is. So what is Black Lightning doing now that he's gotten his powers back? Well, for one, he is heading up an operation within Justice League Unlimited. For those who don't know, while yes, he is not a part of the core team at this particular moment in time, regarding absolute power and the fallout of that, the Justice League has been expanded to the point where it would actually be quicker for me to tell you who is not in the Justice League as opposed to me telling you who is in the Justice League. Justice League, literally everybody is in it. You get a card, you get a card, you get a card, you get a card. Everybody gets a card. Everybody gets to have a seat at the Justice League table. And what Jefferson is doing with his seat at the table is that he is starting a proactive operation, an outreach to potential new metahumans, because as I said earlier, the people who did not get their powers back, their power had to go somewhere. And not only that, it's also stated that there are people who are just gaining metahuman abilities as a result of the fallout of absolute power, like that are not connected to other people's powers. So we're gonna have to kind of play along and see what's going on there. But for the most part, yes, he is reaching out to the people, especially the younger people who are gaining powers, who are being attacked for being perceived as threats. He's trying to protect those people. And it makes sense. He's a teacher by trade, and that's what he does. He has to protect his students, which means he's gonna protect children, above and beyond anyone else. So that's what he's trying to do. And he's also trying to go after potential threats before they can manifest themselves to become something far worse, like what happened with Amanda Waller in Absolute Power. But as a result of all this, as he's trying especially to protect his own backyard, which technically they still call it Southside Metropolis, or Southside Heights as it's referred to in this, which is something I thought was kind of funny, that there are characters in this that don't particularly care for that. Honestly, I'm shocked they don't just call it Freeland. I'm almost shocked that that's they didn't take that over from the TV series, like just call it Freeland. But anyway, in his efforts to do all this, something has happened. There's been what seems to be a tangible rift between himself and his children, more specifically himself and Anissa, and we don't really know why. Like, Anissa is hanging out back in New Orleans, staying on the down low. She's not really trying to get involved in any superhero shenanigans. And as you read, it probably becomes increasingly obvious that, oh, maybe she was one of the people who never got her powers back. But it's never explicitly stated, or at least not out loud. We know that Jennifer is still around and she's a part of the Justice League. She's working alongside her dad, so everything seems to be okay there, but you can tell there's just a little bit of a rift. Not so much a rift, more of tension, because Jefferson, because of the events of Absolute Power, he is even more of a helicopter parent than he was before, which means Jennifer feels like she's not being trusted to do the thing. But it is safe to say there's something going on with her powers. And that's what leads us to, the whole, I guess, overall arc of this, is that Anissa, it's not that she lost her powers. It seems that she has a whole new power set. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, Anissa, normally as Thunder, does not have electricity-based powers. She has invulnerability and superhuman strength. And she can also cause like shock waves and, thunderclaps of that matter. Not too dissimilar from what the Hulk you associate with the Hulk. But at the same time, her powers are not electricity based. It's just her name that was. I actually talked about this in a video. You should actually totally go check it out, where I completely debunk the myth that every black superhero, or not even every black superhero, but that the majority of black superheroes have electricity-based powers. And I am sad to bring up, though also kind of happy at the same time, because I think this is going to be an interesting thing, for Black Lightning and his daughters as characters, especially considering who they are, who they're connected to, and how this whole thing works. Anissa seemingly has her sister's powers. Now, I say that because when we see Anissa in this, it's when Jefferson and Jennifer are going after a potentially new metahuman, someone who looks eerily the way that Jennifer used to look back in her old JSA days when she was initially gaining her powers and she would just be a solid energy form, which technically she's able to do, but now she's a solid energy form that can wear clothes. Here we see one that's a solid energy form that looks just like the way she used to. And we've seen earlier that her powers don't seem to be working quite as well as what we know they should. It seems like instead of Anissa losing her powers and them just being gone forever, or her gaining someone's entire power set as a whole, it seems like what's happened here is that Anissa has taken some of Jennifer's powers, which might explain why Jennifer's powers aren't working exactly as well as they normally would for her, something she seems to kind of struggle with in this issue. Moments where like, oh, she normally would be able to handle this no problem, but now she seems like her powers are not doing exactly what she wants them to. Almost like if she doesn't have the same amount of powers before. This may not be the case at all, but I feel like this is what it is. This is what it looks like on its face. That it looks like Anissa gained some of Jennifer's abilities. And why does Jennifer still have her powers? Maybe it's their relation. Maybe it's the fact that they're sisters that kept Anissa from necessarily taking powers that someone else had and taking them for themselves. Maybe it's why she is sharing them. Whatever the case is, she doesn't fully know how to control them. And it seems like a lot of the series is going to be about Black Lightning trying to train his daughter Thunder to use these powers and maybe help figure out why she has them and maybe help Jennifer figure her stuff out too. I don't really know, but whatever it is, I like what's going on here. I like what's going on. I like this setup. I like Black Lightning's being treated as an actual credible superhero who stands shoulder to shoulder with other Justice League characters. Something I've said for a long time. There is no good reason why a character as powerful as Black Lightning, a guy who can literally become living electricity, he is so powerful that to levels that it's kind of funny. I feel like while I enjoyed the CW series Black Lightning, I feel like that TV show actually tricked people into believing that Black Lightning wasn't as powerful as he is in the comics. In the comics, this guy can literally like channel himself through electric lines. He doesn't even require sleep or food or air or water really, because if he's in his electricity form, he's good. But yeah, and some of these things may or may not have been retconned over the years, but to my understanding, they're still very much in play. Black Lightning is a whole problem, and yet he's treated as though he's in the D leagues. And I'm like, dude, this guy could literally hold his own. I think he could literally hold his own with the Trinity. And, you know, he's not being, at least up to this point, he is not being treated as such. And I hope that changes. I hope that changes. But if this is DC's idea of all in, I'm in.